Alright, hello everybody. So I'm back again with another video, and this time around I wanted to do a contest response to Elizabeth's contest. Now, if you're not familiar with her channel, I'll put a link in the description box. But she's basically not a new YouTuber. She's very well established in other channels, but she's basically made, sort of an up-and-coming vinyl channel, vinyl-related channel. So do check out her stuff. She did a contest where she asked 5 questions. I won't be answering all of them simply because some of them don't apply to me, but I will be answering 3 of the questions. And I'm going to start out actually with my favorite question of all, which was, what record do you immediately get reminded of your childhood? And for me, this was a really easy choice. In fact, I'm really glad that you asked this because this record, I usually lump my videos into genres, and with this record, I'm not really sure where that would fit with the genres that I show. And needless to say, this record just screams my childhood, being a kid in the 90s, being a 90s kid. This record really, says it all. This is a compilation that was originally released in the 90s, and it's titled The Best of the Nicktoons. And back in the 90s, it was only released on CD, but earlier this year, it was released on vinyl for the very, very first time. And so as you can see there, it's got a lot of various pictures of cartoons that came out on Nickelodeon. And basically what it has is a bunch of musical cuts that were on these cartoons lumped into one compilation. And so, yeah, I mean, this one, when this came out, when this was announced, I was like, this was an absolute must for my collection, no question about it. I'll give you a look at the track listing there. So, as you can see there, it's basically got a lot of songs from Rugrats, from Kablam, Rocko's Modern Life, Angry Beavers, Hey Arnold. The only disappointing thing was that there's only one song for Cat Dog, which was the last one. And I wish they had put more of that, but I guess they were running out of room on the LP, so I can't really complain too much there. Anyways, as far as the packaging on this goes, this one's really cool. They did release different versions of it. They did a picture disc second pressing, and very recently they did a splatter reissue. I think that came out in July. This one that I'm holding here is actually the original press of the record. And the original press, you can tell it is the original by looking at the vinyl color. This one is on a very cool green with orange merge vinyl. The label is also really cool. It's got a Nickelodeon label on the A side. And on the B side, it's got a really cool picture of all the Nicktoons there, if it'll focus. So there you go. Really, really cool looking vinyl there. Now, being a kid in the 90s, I think we can pretty much all agree, if you're a 90s kid watching this, I think you can pretty much agree that you were glued to the television set. Particularly in the Saturday morning cartoons. It was all about getting your Lunchables, getting your drinks, your chips, and looking at cartoons, watching cartoons all morning long. That's what it was all about. And so I didn't really listen to a lot of music in the 90s, I'll be honest with you. I was more about video games, toys, and cartoons in the 90s. And so, being that this sort of thing, comes out on vinyl, where it merges my childhood and my current love into one, that is something that I really appreciate. And so, for that reason, I'm really, really stoked to have this in the collection. If you're a 90s kid that was glued to the TV set as much as I was, this is an absolute must. I highly recommend you grab this. I think the picture disc edition is probably the most accessible. But yeah, I really do recommend this one. The Best of the Nicktoons on vinyl. Definitely one to grab a hold of. Okay, moving on to the next question. So the next question is, what is the most beat up record in your collection and why did you buy it? Okay, so first of all, my beat up record is probably not as beat up as, some of your out there probably imagining. I don't really buy a lot of beat up records for my collection because I usually have a set limit of, at least very good condition for the vinyl on the jacket. But in this case, it was at a time where I wasn't so picky, and it was $4, and so I was like, I'll just buy this one right now, and later on I'll find a good minty copy, but for now at least I can have a plain copy. So this one is one of my favorite albums of all time. This one is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by none other than Black Sabbath. Now, the condition, not really the best. It's got ring wear on there. I think it's kind of opening up at the top there as well. And, yeah, it's in pretty rough condition, particularly for the jacket. It's seen much better days. As I said, you'd probably think that this one is much more beat up than this. Water damage, ripping all over the damn place. It's really not as horrible as you would imagine. It's also got the original inner and the original lyric insert sheet as well. And the vinyl this is actually a Warner Brothers pressing of it, so I think it's an American pressing. The vinyl is really not that horrible. I mean, it's not got a lot of scratches on it or anything like that. It's nice and playable, doesn't skip, and like I said, it does work as a good plain copy in the meantime. Because this is one of those records that I really want in the form of an original pressing, but you rarely see early Sabbath records around here at the record stores. Early pressings of the early albums, so it's a toughie, but eventually I'll get there and grab myself a good minty copy of it. But for now, I've thought about getting rid of this, but I was just like, whatever. It's in my collection now. It's not like I'll really benefit all that much from getting rid of it, and I'll have something to play if I really am in the mood to play this album. So, yeah, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. A nice ring wear copy for everyone to see. Okay, so moving on to the last question. Now, before I show you the record I have for this question, I need to tell you a brief story. The question you were asking was, what was your best Goodwill score ever? So here's the deal with that. About a year ago, I think it was a year ago, I was having trouble finding a receiver. And so I walked into Goodwill. I didn't find the receiver, but as I was walking out of the Goodwill, next to the exit is where they keep the vinyl records. And you can see the spines, and normally the spines are terrible looking, and when they look like that, I don't even bother, I'm just like, I'll probably find Barbra Streisand records in there. So I usually skip it, but on this particular day, the spines, they just look so freaking beautiful. And so I was about to walk out, but I was like, I'm gonna go look through that stack. I mean, there must be something good in there. And so I go over there. There's no one even paying attention to the records. And I go over there, and immediately as I start flipping through, I was really, really surprised. Various albums by UFO, Thin Lizzy, Status Quo. I think I found Nuggets compilation promo. That was another thing. Some of these were promos and, really good imports and first pressings. And they were in really nice condition. And from this pile, I probably found the best find, and I don't have it anymore, was Status Quo. And they released the live album that was only ever released in Japan. At least up until recently. I think they repressed it for 2015, but for like decades, they released this album and it was only available in Japan. And it was called Tokyo Quo. And this release, I think it was only released on CD and vinyl, and one time for both, so not various pressings, but just one time. And this album was the vinyl edition. It had the Obi and it had the insert, and it was in just beautiful, spectacular condition. This thing looked unplayed, and it looked untouched. And so I was like, holy crap. I mean, I'm not a fan of Status Quo, but I knew what this was. I knew this had to be worth some money. And so I grabbed it along with all the other records that I was interested in having. And I took it home, and immediately the first thing I did was I looked up the value of the Status Quo LP. And if you look it up, even to this day, you'll notice that, you know, really good complete copies, like the one that I found, was, you know, runs pretty much for $300 to $400 on a good day. And that's even assuming you can find it. You know, it's really hard to even find in the first place. And the grand total that I paid for this record was 80 cents. Was how much I paid for this record. And so, you know, being the open-minded individual that I am, I did stick it onto the turntable to see if I even like this LP. You know, maybe I want to keep it and not sell it. And I didn't like it, you know. And people who know me know that I'm not really a fan of live records as it is. And being that this was a live record by a band that I don't even listen to, you know, it didn't really add up to much to me. So I was like, you know, whatever, I'll sell it on eBay. And so I managed to sell it on eBay for, this was a couple of years ago, and I managed to sell it on eBay for $300 is how much I sold it for. And so with that money, I ended up buying a PlayStation 3. And I wanted a PlayStation 3 primarily to play Grand Theft Auto 5. And so yeah, that is basically my story of my greatest Goodwill find. But, you know, just so I don't have an empty hand for this question, I will show you another record that I, you know, found from that stack, which was, you know, my second favorite besides that. And it's by a band called UFO. Now, UFO is not a band that I really see shown a lot in the vinyl community. But I want to encourage you all out there watching to check out this band if you are not familiar with their music. I'm sure that you've heard of them, but please listen to their music. This is their third album, I believe it was, and it's called Phenomenon. Very interesting artwork on the front there. Primarily at the time that I got this, I wasn't familiar with UFO's music, but Iron Maiden covered a song called Doctor Doctor, and this song is on this album. And so I was like, you know, UFO, since Iron Maiden covered them, they must be good. And so I grabbed all the UFO records that were in the stack. This was one of them. And I ended up finding out that this album is absolutely brilliant. Really, really amazing album. As you can see there, the condition is really, really nice. And, you know, just imagine all these records that I'm talking about, you know, being in this sort of condition where they're just really, really beautiful looking. And this is a first pressing, a first UK pressing from the 70s. So, yeah, I mean, you know, being that they're so old and that they're imported, I was really surprised to find them in this sort of condition. Check out the vinyl. I mean, it was almost like I was in the UK in the 70s, and this album had just come out, and I just picked it up in the record store. That's the condition we are talking about right here. As you can see in the labels there, this is on Chrysalis, I think that's how you pronounce it. And this one, like I said, is an original UK pressing of it. And so, yeah, I mean, what can I say? I was really stoked to get a hold of this one for the grand total of 80 cents. And, I mean, even this record, usually it runs for about $30, you know, in this sort of condition. So finding it for 80 cents even then is really, really awesome, I think. But yeah, I mean, this Goodwill haul of mine was really insane. I don't really think I'll ever find anything like that again. A Japanese pressing in a Goodwill that's, you know, beautiful and it's worth $300. I mean, when does that ever happen? But yeah, I was really stoked to have that happen to me. I felt like I won the vinyl lottery that day. But yeah, anyways, that is all for my response, Elizabeth. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope everyone else has enjoyed watching. And yeah, thank you so much for looking at this video, and I will catch you all later. Goodbye.